We're present now at the special call meeting of the Board of Trustees, United ISD. For the record, today is Tuesday, August the 10th, 2021, and the time is now 6:36 p.m. We're present at the Student Activity Complex in room number 2 at 5208 Santa Claudia Lane in Laredo, Texas. We've already opened with the pledge and the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. For the record, may I have the board members present to my left, starting with Mr. Rodriguez?
Ricardo Rick Rodriguez, present.
Elisa Oliveros, present.
Frank Castillo, present.
Javier Montemayor. Ramiro Vélez, the third.
Ricardo Molina Sr.
Have a quorum. I hereby let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. Any public comments on this meeting?
Not at this time, sir.
All right. Agenda item number 5, discussion, action to freeze employee pay scale due to loss of enrollment and budget constraints. Mr. Garcia, good afternoon.
Mr. Montemayor, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, the administration is recommending, for reasons that have to do with finance, we're proposing that the teacher pay scale or base salary scale for the 2021 school year to remain unchanged. Can you flash the scale up there, please? Thank you. What the administration has done through, of course, our Director of Compensation and other staff, we're proposing and recommending that we keep the salary to be unchanged. The changes that we have made to the present is to adjust for the additional year of service. So if you look at the individuals at year one, the people with who had 0 years of experience this past year, they have a 1 year of experience that is reflected on this present scale. The information on the left side of the screen also pertains to additional stipends that the district pays for our employees that reach those that are assigned to those areas or work in those specific areas. Compared to the state scale, the minimum salary scale for employees as required by the state is $33,660. And as you can see, we pay $50,200, and we pay in excess of $15,000 by comparison to the state recommended minimum pay. So the administration is making that recommendation for your review and consideration.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so, I mean, as stated, it's due to a budgetary potential shortfall due to enrollment. Is there a possibility that if we were to approve this evening, that we would be able to come back this school year and readdress the situation and possibly give those step increases?
My understanding, the answer is correct, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, there is.
Do you know more or less when? Maybe December?
I mean, we're looking at, first of all, we got to look at a steady enrollment, and we'll probably look at it maybe in November, ma'am, to see where we're at.
November?
And then we can come back to review it. That's a possibility.
Okay, and if we did look at that, if we did readdress the situation in November, well, we wouldn't know, right? We could discuss going retroactive, or is that not on the table?
I mean, we're looking at a possible,
What we would do,
Adjustment.
because remember, we're going to be talking about the budget, and the budget is a working document, and it's based on projections. What we would do, again, like was said, we'd watch attendance, we'd watch enrollment. Who knows, maybe TA would expand those 20 days to be 30 or 40, and that would help us a lot too, especially if we have to be sending students home for remote conferencing. So, give us a good 6 weeks
Okay.
of really looking at our attendance, our enrollment. We always would come back and revise our budget, maybe recognize some additional revenue.
Right.
And then we would work with legal to see how we could adjust our salary scale to reflect any type of increase that the board would consider. And so that, we'd come through the board action to budget-wise and then also compensation-wise. But I think that's our main, uphill, I don't want to say uphill battle right now, but it's the student enrollment and attendance. But as you can see, a week ago, TA kind of gave a little bit.
Right.
Before it was like, we're not going to give you any money if you send kids home because they're positive. And now they're going to allow us to count attendance for those students if they meet those 3 requirements. So, I mean, it was really good news, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, very much
Yes.
so.
I've got
Just
Go
as
ahead.
a rule of thumb, just to share with you all, that traditionally in a regular school year, we've had our peak enrollment spike in October. So by October, we should know what our peak enrollment is for our district. And even last year, when we had only remote instruction, it was traditionally the same thing. In October, we had our peak, and at that point, we're able to determine what that number is. So somewhere in October, we should have a good number.
I had a question, you're gonna freeze, how about, we're lacking bus drivers and other people? You don't have a freeze on those, right?
No, not the employment, sir.
Just,
It's just in the salary.
No,
so
this
the funds are already allocated for those
Yes.
positions, right?
Yes, sir, they are.
So I'm just curious,
Bus drivers? Yeah.
so what happens when, let's say the 30-year employee or the 25-plus year employee versus the, I think the first 2-3 year employee? What's the difference when you freeze their pay scale? What happens?
That's what I'm looking at.
Their salary is constant. Let me put it this way.
it
We
just-
do not do anything to hurt the employee. Inasmuch as we understand the concerns having to do with revenue shortfalls, we will do what we need to do to be fiscally responsible and work within our means. I would wish, this is just a personal comment, that there would be an opportunity for our employees to be recognized for our efforts that have brought us to the pinnacle of what we are as a public school system. But at the same time, we are making a responsible recommendation for the board to consider, because it is on the elected body to consider the administration's recommendation at this time.
What would happen if we don't approve a freeze? I still don't understand. If we're not sure what's ahead of us, why freeze something?
What we're trying to do is be very conservative with regards to our dollars and cents to both the constituents of this organization, but at the same time, make a conservative recommendation in order to work within our means. The other is we have flexibility that if the numbers do increase based on the monitoring that we do, recruitment, and everything else that deals with student attendance, because that's a major revenue that we are able to
I have a
receive.
problem listening to the word conservative, okay? And not because you're saying it, but just in general. I don't think that the price of gasoline is conservative anymore. I don't think foods
Agree.
are conservative. They're doing their business as usual.
Correct.
I want to know why we can't do our business as usual.
And I agree, but I'm looking at the salary, an employee, a teacher with 29 years of experience that would jump to 30 would lose. A potential loss in salary would be roughly $800. Am I correct?
Actually, the teacher's frozen at that salary. In other words, if you had
Okay,
a,
right, so
No loss or
a
increase.
potential increase of $800 to the next step of 30.
How much
That's
are we
the
how much are we
difference.
saving in total by freezing?
well, it's not that we're saving, we're keeping the budget as it is.
Right.
And really, it's, what you're saving, I guess, is the part of not increasing
Right,
the
that's-
wages.
That's my
Yeah.
question.
In other words, what you're trying to say, okay, if we weren't to freeze it and we continue what we're going, there could be possibilities of riffing teachers, right? And laying off because we're not going to meet, if we don't meet what we
Our
need to meet.
student enrollment,
And that's what we're
yes.
trying to prevent. Now,
Yeah.
my question would be also, let's say we freeze, would it be rectal pay after we unfreeze it and we bring it back?
It
Well,
would be-
I mean, another option would be like a one-time payment to our employees, like in November. We could do that something like in November, if the budget looks like the kids are showing up to school, the revenue's coming in, then one of the options could be like a one-time payment for our employees at that time.
We
Aside
can
from the
work
extra
with
funds.
you all on that to make sure it's a legal payment, if that's
Yes.
That
how the
doesn't go
numbers
to your
show, and they
TE
bring it back
anything.
to the board, and we can make sure that, like Mr. Gonzalez was saying, maybe a one-time payment to make sure we're in line with
But a
the
one-time
law.
payment would not, correct me if I'm wrong, would not go to your
Yeah.
best 3 years
Yeah.
for purposes of retirement.
You're right.
It's not, and I think that's
That's a concern.
a concern for those.
It is a concern, but at the same time, we gave them a stipend that will count toward TRS.
If I may, just,
Yes.
Ms., board members and members of the of the audience. The freeze is really, what we're doing here is that our current teacher scale, let's say a teacher at step 2 is making 55,000. That teacher will earn a year of service, go to step 3, but it so happens that salary will be the same. So that teacher will not lose any money. We're just going to keep their salary the same. It will be constant. And the other question I wanted to refer to was the September payroll is the first payroll of the year for our teachers. And this is why we need to have some sort of teacher scale approved by the Board of Trustees so that we can move forward and process that payroll. So we would need to have some type of schedule approved.
Right, okay.
And
What-
then just to remind you all, we have that $3,500 we are going to pay out. Half of it will be October 4th, I understand.
Yes.
$1,750 will be paid to all employees, full-time.
Correct.
And the other half will be in January.
Right, correct. But let me point out that it's from the federal fund, so this is completely different. I know we're talking about the budget of our fund, so. So I know you guys are saying you want to be conservative, that they will not lose, but I think I want to see if we can get the question Mr. Montemor asked, what's the amount that we're not going to utilize or save, or if we went ahead and.
If we didn't approve it,
And
how
didn't
much
approve
would
it
that?
and went ahead
If
and
we didn't
used.
approve it, what impact would that have to personnel? I think that's the
What's the amount that
question.
we're talking
How
about?
many employees do we have at 30 years that are not gonna get paid their $800 more? How many employees do we have at 25 years of service that are not going to jump up to the 26?
I don't have that information readily available to answer your question.
And how much are we going to save by freezing? Is it
Right,
going to
I
make
see
a
what
significant difference? Because our teachers are also going back to school, and they're also going to be, putting themselves on the line. That's just my question, but.
Right. And I think we all understand it's going to be real uncertain, the start of the year enrollment. We all understand that our main funding from the state comes based on enrollment numbers, and that's in turn has a great impact on races and stuff like this. But this is something that year after year, teachers obviously gaining more experience, jumping into the next year. They look forward to that small increase based on their years of service. So
When's the next meeting, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, I don't-
The next general meeting is
Next
Well,
Wednesday.
next week,
next week.
next Wednesday.
and I understand that you guys have to have a pay scale. So I don't have an issue, Mr. Montemayor, that we can approve a temporary freeze, but that we have to bring it back, let's say October, November, and
To revisit.
And I agree only because I'm looking at the highest step from 29 years of service to 30 is about 849, 850. And when you look at that compared to the $3,500 that is going to count towards the TRS, I feel okay with it. I don't like it, but I understand your predicament with the budget, and we certainly don't want people to lose their jobs. So because of all the things that I mentioned, I would feel okay with it, but I don't think I've never done this before as a board member. And I hope that when we come back in November, I think we're all hopeful that we'll be able to honor this scale.
I also feel very much that, you've done your due diligence in trying to let us know what we're facing, and I understand that. I also understand a teacher who's kind of seen this schedule in her teaching career and is looking at it and saying, hey, how come I'm not getting what you promised I would be getting? And so that's where I'm trying to be balanced, and that's why I think we shouldn't freeze. That's
Well,
me.
it would take that teacher to go from 4 more years to make the 3,500. So that's why I feel okay with it. It's gonna be okay this year because we had the federal funds. If we didn't have that, I would certainly vote against this. But because we have that, and it's helped very much, I'm okay with it.
And
I'm okay
I
with it.
think, all in all, I think they will be getting their money back, so, I mean.
It's
so
temporary,
the teachers
yeah.
would understand, they're getting their money back, and it's just temporary, and I know it's hard. I mean, I think everybody deserves a raise. I mean, we've been through this, and it's hard, but unfortunately, we're going through crisis right now that we can't do it right now because we don't want to lay off people, and I think It sounds worse getting laid off than just to be conservative and hold out for a couple of months and then get your money back. So I think I'd rather go with this, so my motion is to vote for this.
So are we going to lay off teachers? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, potentially.
No, sir.
Potentially.
Potentially.
There is no presentation by the administration where we're declaring a financial exigency at this time.
So right now, I have a motion by Mr. Veliz
And second.
to approve this temporarily through October with a second by Mr.
Rodriguez.
Can we get a date on that?
Rodriguez.
Well, let me be specific. My motion would be, Mr. President, that we temporarily freeze the employee scale that directly impacts our teachers and our nurses, and bring it back in the October regular scheduled meeting on that specific day, which should already be out. And if we can already have the information as far as what's the exact amount that we're saving or that we're not utilizing.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think, Ms. Benavides, I think that would be a question for you. In October, if you could
Right.
just bring us the amount that if we do approve to go retro, what is the financial impact to the budget, number-wise, a dollar sign? Right.
With the second, so we have a second by Mr. Rodriguez with those modifications by Mr. Veliz. Still your second? All right, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I will, no.
One no from Mr. Castillo. All right, the next item is item number 6, discussion, action to approve modified student dress code for students in grades 9 through 12, FNCA local student dress code, student conduct dress code, I'm sorry.
Good evening, members of the board, once again. We are recommending a dress code change in the FNCA local for students at the high school level. And from what we are hearing is that it is almost very difficult, unless you shop online, to find any merchandise or inventory in our stores, in our community. We have given vouchers, not very many. Normally, we give about 1,200 vouchers throughout the course of our voucher drives. This year, we've given out about 300 vouchers, 300 to 400 vouchers this school year. So as much as we have tried to communicate with our parents with regards to that, our vendors do have the uniforms, but the recommendation that we are making is only for students at the secondary level, where we would put in a regulation, which is the next item on there, Mr. Zarate, on there, that the only thing that changes is for students in grades 9th through 12th. So the students, we would have standardized dress uniforms for students in pre-kinder through 8th grade, and the exemptions then would be for students at the high school level. So
Why are we not including all grade levels? I'm confused.
we have heard from a lot of individuals that they've already purchased their uniforms. And so when inadvertently that flyer went out, we were flooded with calls, basically telling us if we were going to reimburse those individuals, all right? And there are some inventory, a little bit more. You see them at Target, you see them at the Walmarts and so forth. And of course, our vouchers that have been given out have been more for the elementary and middle school students. So with that, I guess, issue that has kind of surfaced, we were looking at that. And so you have pros and cons, individuals for, individuals against the uniforms. And of course, some people saying it's so much cheaper to do a uniform. When we mentioned that it may be an option for them to wear, they said absolutely not. My child will not want to wear the uniform when her neighbor sitting next to her is going to wear the cute little outfit. And so it's what are you going to do? So after discussing this with Mr. Gonzalez and administration, we went back and just allowed it at the high school level.
Mr. Rendon, I think well, the question is we're very concerned about the dress code, modifying it, but I think the fear is what's happening, not the dress code, how they're going to be dressed. I think the conflict is the instability of the health issue, what's happening in schools, what's going to All the questions that they have in their little head, that,
More than
and
anything-
everybody has it, the fear of their children getting sick.
But when you
and all
start
this
looking,
stuff.
when you start looking at the data, sir, and we look at PEAMS data, even though we didn't have that many, but the majority of the students that came face-to-face were your elementary students.
I think the,
The high school students did not show. And so we want to have a welcoming type of environment. When you start asking some of those high school students, you know, how could we draw you in? How could we welcome you into a school setting? Some of those comments are, you know, they want to be their own person and dress appropriately. But we still put some parameters, Mr. Molina, in the regulation, if you scroll up, with regards to what can and cannot be worn. It's not necessarily a free-for-all either, all right? You can't wear spaghetti straps, you can't wear halter tops, you can't wear backless, you know, shirts, you can't wear shirts, anything above 3 inches above the knee. So there goes your mini skirts, there go your short shorts, you know, all of those still will have to be, of course,
Appropriate.
Yes,
Yeah, dress appropriate.
You're right.
I, for one, I've never liked the dress code. I'm not a proponent of the dress code. And only because I feel sometimes, well, I'm talking about when my children were in school, especially at the elementary level, I felt like some employees were very focused on the dress code. And to me, it's more important that a child is at school learning. And I mean, what they're wearing, yes, as long as it's appropriate, they need to learn. And I think sometimes employees were a little harsh on enforcing the dress code. I think we need to be a little more lenient with it. And that's just my opinion. I wish we didn't have a dress code. There's too much emphasis on that. We need to be focused on education, not what people are wearing. Of course, we don't want people dressing in a distracted manner. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and agree with it, but I wish it were for all grade levels.
I think this dress code been for the longest time, would it be a 1 year, or what are gonna be?
We put for the 21-22 school year, sir.
For this school year.
You know, I think personally, I've been here for a long time. That dress code we never budged on anything like that. You know, it's always been everybody, because it makes everybody equal with uniforms and everything. If my father doesn't have money to dress me the way the other kids in the school, so that levels everybody dressed the same way, and that's why we did it for the longest time up to now.
Not necessarily
I think
because
this ain't gonna help.
sometimes they wear designer shirts. Not everyone can afford the designer shirt. So there's no leveling field. It's just, and I've seen the high school students with the dress code. They're very creative, and I like that. I like that they can be themselves. So
Just for the record, I mean, right now with our vendors, I think the population is having a hard time finding the uniforms right now, the high school kids. They're having a hard time finding the larger sizes.
But
That's
I
not
think
out
at
there.
the same time, it's a matter of size. You know, you have a lot of middle school students who are big, you know, they're maybe a little more developed than you know, elementary kids. And so what are we going to do about those?
We gave a little flexibility, sir. I mean, we have allowed, and you'll see it in the guidance, where we do allow, and that has been a, probably something that had not been necessarily, I guess, called upon by a student, but we have allowed for the longest time leggings and jeggings for the students. And so you see the individuals at the high school levels wearing what we call the exercise pants with a long, you know, the shirt, or they wear the oversized hoodie. And even though we say no oversized items, you know, a hoodie usually falls, you know, a little lower than your waist area. And so we are being a little bit flexible in that sense for those individuals with regards to allowing that.
Can it go optional for right now?
Option for,
Optional,
for all grades,
for all grades,
I would be okay with that.
for right now, at least, while all this plays out.
I was going to mention that, or ask, you know, what do parents have as an option, you know, to send somebody with?
I mean, if they already bought the uniform, they can wear it,
Yes.
but if they haven't, they don't have to.
Was really.
we fielded a lot of calls on
Right.
Friday. We fielded a lot of calls on Friday with regards to that. And so, again, pros and cons. The majority, of course, were your timing.
Right. And I've gotten some parental feedback as well through emails and calls, and it's gone both ways.
But it's a timing. It's the 4 days before school starts,
Right.
and how, why didn't you tell us this
And
a
then
month ago?
there's,
When we already made these purchases.
right, and at the end, what I'm saying is this is one of the things that is coming up right at the end, close to the start of the year. For us, where something that's really not as important as other matters, but something that we would consider. But, and I welcome the district's intent here, but I do think that we shouldn't differentiate, and we should open it up to all students, all grade levels. I think we give them the option, obviously, let everybody know that it's this 1 year. Unlike you, Ms. Oliveros, I do like the uniform code that we have. I do think, just like Mr. Molina mentions, that it does create a uniformity across all the students. So I like that, but I do feel that this past year, coming into this new year, has been real difficult for a lot of parents. So I think this is something that will be welcome. Again, given as an option, my recommendation would be to proceed with this, but open it for all grade levels
Is that a motion?
as an option. That would be my
That's-
my
Is
motion.
that a motion?
So,
That'll be my motion.
the motion that I have then on the floor is approve the modification of the student dress code for students in grades K through
Pre-K.
12th grade,
Pre-kinder, sir.
pre-kinder through 12th grade, all students at United ISD, temporarily through the 2021-2022 school year.
I second the motion.
With a second by Mr. Molina. All those, any discussion on the issue? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. The first and, item number 7, first and final reading of revisions to EEH local instructional arrangements, homebound instruction.
Oh, it's going to be tabled, sir. We don't have to make it.
All right, so there's, that item will be tabled to when, Ms. Rendon? Indefinitely?
No, we're not going to need to make a change because of the 20-day requirement.
Okay.
Okay, so no action.
And so no action will be taken then. And the last item is adjournment of the special call meeting. Following, next will be the business committee meeting.